M. M is for memorial. How does God intend that events important to Him are impressed upon human hearts for as long as life lasts? It is by setting up memorials. Setting up altars as memorials pointing to important events is a common practice among the patriarchs of faith. For example, Jacob set up an altar of memorial at a place where he had an encounter with God and named the place Bethel, the house of God. After God stopped River Jordan from flowing so that the Israelites and God's Ark of Covenant could cross freely onto the other side, Joshua set up a memorial to remind them of God's miraculous works and His faithfulness. God Himself set up memorials to commemorate the two most important events in the gospel story, the creation and the redemption of humanity. The Sabbath day as a memorial of His work of creation, and the Lord's Supper as a memorial of His work of redemption. The Bible tells us that in 6 days God created the world, and on the seventh day He rested from all the works which He has done. He not only rested on the seventh day, the Bible said that God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. He set this day up as a memorial of His work of creation of the world forever. He would later pointedly remind believers of this important memorial by placing it in the midst of the 10 commandments. In the 4th commandment, God begins by saying, "Remember. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. In 6 days you will work, just as I did at creation, but on the 7th day you will rest on this day, which I have set up as a memorial of my creative work, the day which I have blessed and sanctified." There were many Sabbath days which were celebrated annually in Israel's history. They could fall on any day of the week. They were written in the law of ceremonies and not in the 10 commandments. So they were different from the Sabbath day which God instituted at creation to be celebrated weekly. God knows that many in these days will forget this Sabbath day of rest. Therefore, He begins the commandment with the word, "Remember." Remember this day which I have set up as a memorial of my creation. Jesus remembered this day. It was His custom, meaning it was habitual for Him to go to church, the synagogue, on the Sabbath day. The disciples never forgot. They remembered. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, writing about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus more than 50 years after the event, recognized the seventh day as the Sabbath and the resurrection Sunday as the first day of the week. There is no indication in the New Testament that God ever ordered that this day of memorial of His mighty work of creation be abolished or changed, and so it remains preserved by God in many ways. Many languages of the world retain the name of the seventh day, which points to this memorial which God set up. It remains preserved in the hearts and the deeds of many faithful Christians all over the world who, like Jesus, have made it their custom to cease from work and fellowship on the Sabbath day. Jesus' only protest about the Sabbath day in the New Testament was how the people had gone beyond what God said to make it a burden too heavy for people to bear. God did not intend that this day of memorial of His miraculous work of creation should become a memorial of prohibition against good works. So Jesus would freely do good on the Sabbath day, work miracles on the Sabbath day, and relieve the burdens of others on the Sabbath day. This made it a true memorial of God's marvelous work at creation. So do you want to honor the memorial which God has set up to be a weekly reminder of His miraculous work of creation? He says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." The second memorial which God set up as a reminder of His miraculous work of redemption is the Lord's Supper, or Holy Communion. The death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus is at the center of the gospel which the disciples preached. Paul stresses the importance of Christ's resurrection when he writes that if Christ is not risen, then our preaching is empty and your faith is also empty. Jesus instituted this memorial of His death, and the Apostle Paul narrates it saying, "The Lord Jesus, on the same night in which He was betrayed, took bread, and when He had given thanks, He broke it and said, 'Take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me.' In the same manner, He also took the cup after supper, saying, 'This cup is the new covenant in my blood. This do as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death till He comes." So believers all through the ages have celebrated this memorial often to remember the death and resurrection of Jesus, which is the work of our redemption. These two memorials, the Sabbath and the Lord's Supper, stand as two institutions that must never be relegated to a position of little importance by followers of Jesus, because they point to the two most important miraculous events in the gospel story, our creation and our redemption. M is for memorial.